Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I think we can all agree this has been an amazing couple of days of events, a lot of interesting takeaways. And today we're going to explore something very important. All the solutions that we've heard about, all the potential improvements for cities, for the planet itself. The big question is, how are we going to fund them? What are the challenges which awaits us? And joining me, I have a very eclectic panel. Which have come all the way from Japan, from the Seychelles, and even further away like Business Bay in Dubai. And let me welcome them on stage. Dr. Shosuke Kiba, CEO of Universal Materials Incubator. And Rosette, CEO of Seychelles Investment Board. Sleiman Abdullah, Director of Administrative Affairs at the Federal Tax Authority. David Ramos, Acting Head of Sustainability at HSBC, and our very own Anis Tabka, SVP for Procurement at Expo City. Brilliant. Thank you all for being here. I think we're all very excited about this panel today. We're going to talk about a very important topic. How are we going to fund all these excellent ideas that we've heard for the last 2 days? And I think we're going to touch, first of all, about the challenges for us to find the solutions. Dr. Shosuke, maybe you can kick us off and talk about the challenges that are happening in Japan and the challenges that you're facing pretty much everywhere in the world in your role of CEO at UME.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for your introduction. So my name is Shosuke. So I am CEO of the Tokyo-based venture capital. So we are invested to the fully committed their impact investment for sustainable technology. So this theme, in case of Japan, so there are some they're hollow. Actually, the funding is quite harder. And also in case of Japan, so their track record also the quite important issue. Here, this is because Japanese people like the new technology. However, in case of public sector, like an urban city, they hesitate to use new technology without the real track record. But these days, they're quite unique, they're interesting, their situation caused. This is earthquake. Yeah, this is because maybe you know this early January, the quite huge, large earthquake the attack to the middle of Japan. I went to the volunteer one month later. So the TV show shows there are quite many people died and the people that disappeared and they cried. But however, after the 1 month later, the people's mindset changed. I really wonder, there are many new technology. Oh, really, this is a real test bed for the new technology. Such case of a real track record cause there are people. This is, I think, the mindset problem. So that's why. So in case of Japan, so the people are changing such a mindset. This is close related to the planning points.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And if I can bring you in, you come from a very beautiful country in Africa, but not without its own challenges on a topographical basis, but also on a funding basis. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Seychelles Investment Board. So we're not a regulator, so we're a facilitator. And what we've found is that we do get a lot of challenges when it comes around funding because we're a small country with these complexities, 115 islands, 1.3 million square kilometers of sea. So scarcity of land, scarcity of resources. Yes, we do have tourism. But like my colleague was saying yesterday, we have to maintain some balance between the number of tourists that comes into the country and the carrying capacity. So our challenge around funding is mainly because government has to balance its budget, and we have to find aside FDI and aside the budget from government, where else can we get funding? And we've seen from the commercial lending system, it's proving very costly. And the term of the loans are very costly for startups and SMEs. We've been looking at solutions, we've been investigating, but we are yet to find the solution that would work. Also, scale. When it comes to scale, we're a small country. How do we grow up in scale? So we're going to have to look at cross-border, regional, and use the agreements that we're having to leverage on.
Super interesting. So for you, do you feel that the key is to strengthen those international relationships, to look for solutions on the outside of the Seychelles, to look at what could work for your own country with its independent challenges?
Definitely. We cannot do everything on our own. We see that there are ways that we can bring funding to the pot. The government has a seed capital, which is helping with the funding, but it's minimal. It's 200,000 rupees per project, and that, I think, is insufficient if you're looking at innovative transformation.
Very interesting. Sleiman, if I can bring you in, Anne said something which is we can't do it all on our own. You come from a country which brought the world together at Expo 2020. You come from a country which brought the world together again a few months ago at COP28. How important is partnerships in the world for challenges and facing them?
Thank you, Nadim. I'll take to the audience with the journey that today UAE and the government is taking. To support the SMEs, the first thing I think most of the countries or most of the governments or most of the companies will focus on changing the policies and procedures, how to support these companies and the government when it comes to procurement processes. So the policies and procedures being set. Now what's next? One of the good initiatives we are taking is ranking the SMEs as top 100 SMEs. So in the beginning was ranking them as overall in every category, so top 100. So as a federal level now, we thought when we are analyzing the requirement to focus on more and digital transformation, so we are thinking about now tech. So we have a new initiatives where we have published also the best top 100 companies. We call them futuristic companies. They are SMEs, startups. So what's happening is we are trying to focus more on technologies and focusing on the best 100 top ranking companies where we can support them in the future. That's when it comes to startups and supporting the SMEs overall in technologies. The second part, we have another good initiatives called ICV, in-country value, which focusing is how we enable and support the private sector to be part of the procurement processes and get businesses. It's not only now in the government. We try to focus on these companies, how they are supporting the SMEs. So now we went to second level. One of the requirement and categories we have added in our procurement processes with the certain threshold, a mandatory score for ICV. So it's become a mandatory requirement in our procurement systems, not only in the policies and procedures, we have enabled it in the system as well. So you will be marked based on the ICV certification scorecard that you get. So what I'm saying is, so it's not only the government taking initiatives to give a businesses and supporting the SMEs. No, we are going to the next level where we are partnering with the private sectors and pushing them to support an SMEs. So in-country values has three main elements when we're evaluating the companies. One of them is how they are supporting the local content. Second one, how they are supporting the UI nationals by recruiting them there. And the third one, how much they are supporting the SMEs. So we went beyond only supporting them, but we are trying to enable through the private sectors.
Fantastic. And this ranking that you spoke of, Anis, in terms of your role in procurement, how does that influence you?
Yeah, so just to put a bit more emphasis on what Sulaiman was talking about, being a government entity, we are subject, to law number 14, in the UAE, specifically in the government of Dubai, where 10% of our spend needs to be going towards, SMEs. So we have basically, we have set specific sets of guidelines where SMEs are given some leeway compared to larger, companies where they can get more businesses easier with easier payment terms, because of their size and because of their financial, status. So they can, get, some, easiness compared to others. And this has been going on for quite some time. So not only from Expo City Dubai, we've been subject to the same thing, since we were, in Expo 2020, where we have committed, to to support not only local SMEs, but also international SMEs, where we have committed to 20% of our spend, to be towards SMEs. And we have exceeded that to over 24%. And we are talking about billions, dollars, worth of spend. So this has been in our DNA. We continue on doing it. And the team, we have focused people that are working on that, and we're continuing, whether through the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, establishment, SME program, or Sheikh Khalifa established program, or the federal program that, Sulaiman was talking about. So this will continue. Furthermore, now we are bringing this towards the sustainable, SMEs. Because not only you have 70% of, again, I need to reiterate, 70% of the local, companies in the UAE are SMEs. So they are very strong part of our ecosystem, which we need to support. But now we want also to support those that are sustainable SMEs. So we have the likes of what you see downstairs, somebody, the Indian company that does, air to water, basically, which we have embedded and we brought on board. We have somebody that you may have eaten, some, salads from, also, bringing something to our farm. So those are some of the local SMEs that we do support. I will continue on supporting more and more. So we will continue as part of our procurement, policy, to support not only the regular SMEs, but also the most sustainable SMEs. So there is a target, for my own team and myself to support them.
Super interesting. And it sounds really that flexibility that you provide to SMEs, that understanding of the challenges they have, the ethos that you have at Expo City, which is to support that ecosystem, is key. And provides them with support that they need. And do you feel that as well, David, in terms of HSBC? How does this affect you, the ranking that Sulaiman mentioned?
Well, I don't think the ranking, hi everyone, thank you for having me here. I don't think the ranking affects HSBC's decisions in terms of ranking. I think one of the challenges that most of the SMEs have is access to finance. It was highly commented yesterday in one of the latest sessions when I was the only the only person working for a bank in the room, and we were kind of, a few people were highlighting it very often. But the challenge, I think, is that definition of SME. Probably what one SME owner that maybe is a small company, 2, 3 employees working for that, yes, that's an SME, but then you also have 250 employees, companies that they have a turnover of $10 million, that they are also SMEs. So that big range, I think, is a problem for financial institutions. HSBC is one of the first international bank settling here in Dubai. I think the history is that we've supported SMEs for a long time. Obviously, the moment HSBC grew to what it is now, one of the 10 top global financial institutions with a presence in 64 countries, I think, globally, that creates kind of more of a barrier for us to bank certain organizations because we cannot bank everybody. So there are criteria that we need to have in place, that our risk teams at a global level, they put in place, and that limits a little bit what type of organization we can bank with. Every bank account that we have opened from individuals, from a company, it has an internal cost for HSBC. And obviously we need to balance that cost with the benefit that we are getting out of that relationship. So that's a little bit of the challenge that we have. This said, even if from a banking perspective, we saw that gap. So my role as head of sustainability, one of the things we do is administer the philanthropic capital that the bank has. And we've been moving traditionally over the last 4 or 5 years, we moved away from that traditional approach to CSR on using philanthropic funds, where you just do volunteering activities for the photo, for putting a PR out. So we really try to use that philanthropic capital with a strategic view and trying to align it as much as possible to the priorities of the bank. So years ago, we saw that gap, that HSBC was not banking small companies, not banking the smallest of the SMEs. So we thought, how can we help them with that philanthropic capital? Then we started supporting accelerator programs like the C3 and bringing now down the C3 Social Impact Accelerator that we've supported for 5 years now. And many of the companies that are listed in that list, in the 100 companies, they are part, or they went through our accelerator programs. That proves that support is good. It helps those companies scale up, grow, and hopefully some of those, they reach that level where they can be bankable by organizations like us.
Very interesting. Thank you, David. And just touching on that, we spoke a bit about the UAE initiative, how it impacts on the procurement level. We heard about flexibility. We heard also about financing. Does the Seychelles have any dedicated SME initiatives that they do? Do you think there's learnings to be taken from sort of the examples we've used today?
I think yes. I mean, I was listening to the 100 initiative. I think this is something that Seychelles needs to take on board. And really, I was just thinking earlier on when the question was asked. I was saying we need some order. We need some structure and framework. And I think this is where the next step is for the SME and for the ministry, which I'm a part. We are part of the portfolio. Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Dr. Kiba, you live every day with SMEs. That's what you do in your role as a CEO at UMI. Does Japan have a specific SME focus? Is there any best practices that you can share with us today?
Yes, this is also the same case of the Japan and also Japanese government. Here, this is because the Japanese, for example, the Japanese procurement system is quite important for the scaling up under the SMEs, the standard companies, and also these days the Japanese government set up they're quite huge the money and the program to grant to scaling up. The early phase to the scaling in the pace, such as seamless support is quite important for the SMEs, the startup companies. Yeah, so and also, this is quite important as in case of the Japan is quite small the market, so that's why we need to focus the outside the Japan market. Yeah, that's why such types of I explained before the real case or real track record is quite important outside of also Japan. Yeah, that's why. So I think we just signed last year the MOU with Expo City Dubai. This is one of their test bed. They're making a scale up in the system. They're making a track record for startup companies to promote this type of the new technology for the urban cities.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I'm going to bring you in again. What do you think are the priority areas for you? What are the priority areas towards sort of bridging that funding gap that we're seeing?
I think the priority areas we've identified, and I would let today we did what we called an investor map in collaboration with the UNDP last year. It was launched in July, and we have an investor map tool which is available where we can find areas of impact development that investors can look into. However, what we need is bankable projects. And this is what we're working on with all the different MDAs of government to identify where the policies and where the NDS or the National Development Strategy is linking to which are the ones the projects that we need in the next 5 to 10 years and 15 years for us to meet our SDG goals, right? So we have identified 5 priority areas: manufacturing, information and technology, services and beverages, aquaculture, which falls in the blue economy, and obviously agriculture, because it's number 1.
Yeah. Okay, super interesting. Anis, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, how can we enable citywide solutions? How can we support SMEs with long-term business opportunities? How do you feel we do that at Expo City? What else can we do?
As I mentioned, the SMEs are, very, very important part of our ecosystem. It's something that you cannot just bypass. So it's not only a target that the government, puts on you to help out, that 70% of that ecosystem, but it's the follow-up that you need to do with the SME, because it could be, as was mentioned, it's a few, couple of men into the company. It could be, something a bit stronger, but most of these guys, they need some hand-holding, on the financial, on how to do things, on how to do bookkeeping, how to deal with us as a large, customers. And we are quite demanding. So the relationship needs to be mutual. We need to educate them. We need to help them, to understand us, how to handhold them. Sometimes it's a direct relationship, sometimes it's indirect, because I also impose on my large contractors to go and, use some SMEs, and they are not happy about it, But because I have these targets, I need to make sure that the contractors really don't squeeze them too much, not only on a cost point of view, but also on the deliverable, etc., to deliver. So they are very eager, to deliver, but I want to make sure that, they continue on, working with them so they just don't crash them. So it's a continuous journey that we need to do. And whether it's us for Expo City or the other large enterprise customers or government entities, it's a duty that you need to do. Because at the end of the day, if they do disappear, what's left? It's not only us as a large company. We need to have this to create jobs, to create the people. It is for the good of the economy. So it's a duty on all of us to make it happen. So this is why we need to take the extra step, and that's why we work with them very closely, to help them out. They all have different problems, wherever they are coming from, so we need to understand them, to be patient, and to make sure that they are successful.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned something which was hand-holding. And sometimes I find that I speak with a lot of companies who want to set up in Expo City, for example, coming from Mexico or Brazil, and they ask me questions like, I've heard that if we open a business, then we need to provide apartments for all our staff. Or we've heard that we don't need to give insurance to anyone. Or we forget sometimes that people don't know about certain markets, and it can be an SME, it can be an international company that wants to set up somewhere. If I want to open a company in Japan, I wouldn't know where to start. And I think hand-holding is extremely important, not just on funding, but on all levels. And Sleiman, I will bring you in as well to discuss this particular topic, if possible.
Thank you, Nadim. From my perspective, I think to support the SMEs, as a public sector or any government, need to focus on three main areas. One is transparency and accountability. When I'm talking about accountability, someone has to take an ownership. Someone has to take a responsibility to support them. And I give some examples. I'll just go through it again as UAE and how serious they are taking this file in their shoulder. We started first in the policies and procedure, and Anis has told about 10%. In some categories, it goes to 40%. Then that top 100 initiatives with the local government. Then we are taking it to the federal government as a 100 top in technology. But having said that, we also, I think most of you guys knows that today UAE has a state of, we assign a minister of state of government development. So supporting an SME become one of the files that they monitor and drive in the country in collaboration with the Ministry of Economy. So these kind of ownership and accountability is very important when you are trying to drive supporting sustainability or SMEs in the country. That's one. Second part, we need to give them an opportunity. I always say this phrase, one of the 10 mistakes that we do in procurement, that falling in love with one partner. So you need to give them an opportunity, especially for non-critical categories. Why still we have companies or countries not supporting SMEs when it comes to non-critical categories? That should be by default. You need to support them. The third one, which comes with awareness, that's very important. That's what we are doing now. Supporting an SMEs is very important for the local economy and supporting sustainability. One of the issues we have seen in the procurement strategies, and I think this is very small things that we can support them, is these SMEs, they need money. You're paying them on time is the minimal things you can do in the procurement when you're dealing with the SMEs. These kind of things, I think, is very important to focus on. We are trying to support SMEs.
Just making sure my And just talking about the money bit, I know you didn't want to go there, but on a banking level, I mean, touching upon all of this, do you feel there's more support that can be done? Do you feel there's anything substantial that's important for SMEs, maybe line of credits that's perhaps a bit more challenging in the UAE? Is that something you can touch on?
Well, my role is non-commercial. That's why I didn't want to go into the commercial side of the conversation, because I don't have all the answers. We have the good and bad thing of sustainability in HSBC is that highly integrated across the whole organization. So I lead sustainability for the region. It's a very small team. We have regional heads in other regions. But then there are sustainable finance teams that are leading specifically in the commercial engagement with client. And we have real sustainability leads, 100% dedicated to it in different departments. So that in principle, is what the future of sustainability should be in an organization, of something I'm very proud of. If we do it too well, I'm going to go out of a job because then they won't need us anymore. Everything is so integrated that they don't need a sustainability team. In terms of support, I think there is more that can be done. We have those internal hurdles sometimes that they don't allow us to go there. And it's not only HSBC that doesn't want to give money. Sometimes I have the impression that maybe I had the same before I joined a bank, that the banks are just big boxes full of money that they give away to companies just because it's the right thing to do, because it's the right company to invest in. It's not as simple. Like if I can ask a questions to the audience, how many of you have an account with HSBC? Not many. We have to do better at that. But anyway, the few ones that have the account with HSBC, when we lend money, it's not our money. It's the client's money that we are lending. It's the client money that we have a responsibility to take care of, and not only the responsibility as an organization, but the responsibility that regulators put on us to make sure that that money doesn't go away. We need to be able to repay the trust of our clients with giving them that money when they need it. We need to have the balance sheet available to, if somebody wants all these millions back tomorrow, we need to be able to do it. So we cannot have it invested in things that are not reliable. So this is the challenge that we have, and that's why we have certain limitations on banking with certain type of organizations. Again, I mentioned C3 before as one example, but I could mention many others. We support some from very, very early stages, not even startups, not even companies. We have an educational program, very successful, that is called Tower, that goes really into the youth between 14 to 16-year-old and try to create that entrepreneurship mindful in them, creating opportunities for them to develop an idea and then create a company out of it. We supported a few years ago with the Environment Agency in Abu Dhabi the Technology Innovation Pioneer Program that was attracting talent to the UAE to help set them up in Abu Dhabi and help them patent their ideas locally in here. So we have mentorship programs with Thai Dubai. We are now supporting a program with Gombook on regenerative agriculture that is trying to get research, innovative research that's happening across the region, and help those researchers to actually develop that into an idea that could create a company. So all of those are, again, trying to cover that gap that maybe we cannot cover with the direct financial support. But at the end, as I said, we are heavily regulated. If somebody tell us, like it's happening in other sectors, 20% of your portfolio has to be to SMEs below $1 million turnover, we will need to do that. So if it's that regulatory requirement, it happens in Egypt. We didn't have a strong SME portfolio in Egypt. There was a regulation that came out and said, would you need to support SMEs because they are important for the country? So then now we have an SME lead in Egypt. We have a whole SME portfolio over there. So it's sometimes it's not that we don't do things because we don't want. Sometimes we just can't.
Yeah. So it's coming from top down, you're saying. And you wanted to comment on that.
Yes, I mean, the challenge and the balance that you've just mentioned are very real because we had sessions over a year with the commercial banks and with Central Bank in Seychelles, and we do realize that we do understand the situations that the bank find themselves in. So that's why I think we have to find other means of financing, really looking at holistic approach, and central bank as well in Seychelles is doing what we call financial education to SMEs, to entrepreneurs, so that they do understand when they're putting themselves in a financial situation, in a lending situation, what they're putting themselves in, and what outcome they want out of it, and the vision of the business that they're trying to build, if it's sustainable.
Can I just build on that? Thank you, because you remind me, like, obviously, yeah, regulation is the easy solution. Not everybody likes regulation. The regulators don't like regulation because it limits certain things and it has a risk when you issue regulation, when the impact that's going to have. So you have to be very careful with that. But incentives, like you were saying, why not a fund? Why not a government-backed fund that is going to support SMEs that are leading on sustainability in the UAE? Banks would jump on it, not only us. Every bank would jump on it to deploy capital into that if it is guaranteed that the money is not going away. If something doesn't work, there is a backup plan to secure that funding. that could work. I'm not sure if it's happening already. I don't know about it, but it could be a easy win that kind of moves capital, or blended finance mechanisms. Why are we not bringing development agencies in here that are supporting SMEs that are specifically focused on sustainability?
Super interesting. I think you have a response.
Yes, in terms of sovereign guarantee, for us this is a real problem because of debt ratio, obviously, and we have to remain resilient to shocks. And the country cannot really, I mean, the government cannot really venture into that as much. But we, like we say, we're looking at our alternatives.
Thanks a lot for that. I am conscious of time, and I'd like to give the opportunity for the audience to ask any question. So if anyone has anything you'd like to ask the panel.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Yana, I'm from Romania, and I'm not sure how this part of the world works, but in our continent, in Europe, there are many cases when the people that get European grants are not necessarily the best professionals, but are actually the best grant writers, because they learn how to actually write the application so they can hack it very well. And this is why there are not so many brilliant results. And I wanted to ask you, what do you do about that? How can you make sure the application process is accessible enough so that it can be accessed by the best professionals out there? Is it a simple application to ask for this funding? How does it work? And how can we fight against, how could I say, grant people that are become dependent on these grants? Like they learn to write such great applications that in fact they don't innovate anymore. They just learn to write the application. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have anyone working in Europe here, but I don't know if anyone has a response to that.
Yeah, we find that out in Seychelles. There are a lot of underutilized funding, especially in blue bond, in green bond, in the city capital, for example. Even though it's so small, we still, because like you say, there are some people who are good at writing proposals and those that are not. So what is government doing? We're trying with our sister company, sister MDA, ESA, bringing capability to actually develop businesses, entrepreneurs who are really starting up, and how to put forward good proposals, and really what is the next step? Yes, you've got the grant, and what happens after that? You need to scale up, you need to move, you need to commercialize. So how do you, the process of you getting there? And it's really been an interesting journey, and I think if we are going to grow our SMEs in Seychelles, this is one area where it's key for us.
Thank you for that. We have 2 minutes left. I just want to ask each member of the panel if there's one takeaway, Dr. Kiba, you want the audience to remember from today. What would that be?
Okay, so thank you. So today's theme is funding urban ideas for cities in action. So in conclusion, I think I believe the innovation power for the city in action. So the important point is their future scenario with using the innovation for the city in action, and also the next step, the future goals. Such type of the image and the scenario is quite important for the funding for the such type of the innovation. So that's why please make the future scenario together.
Thanks a lot for that. Sleiman, any last thoughts for the audience?
I would say try to be agent of value. Supporting SMEs is not about money. I know everything's turned at the end about money. So 1 + 1 = 2. But at the end, if you see the numbers, who bring those numbers? People who's working behind it. So at the end, it's a value. Take the hat of being agent of value. And I remember someone told me that with 2 hands you cannot clap. But I always say this: with 1 hand, you can teach another one. With 1 hand, support another one. With 1 hand, you drive another one. You can, I think, drive change in the organization and hold the nation.
Top down, very interesting. Anne?
I think I'm going to follow on from what Suleiman has said. I think collaboration is key. I think opportunity, and I think be agents of change. And we are at a crossroad, I think, in the Seychelles where we looking at moving our country. We have been protecting our environment for a long time. We've also given up to the world some parts of our land and sea. So how do we make good use of that? And what are the opportunities available to the country that we can leverage on through forums like this, through collaboration, through networking, and through meeting of minds?
Thanks a lot. And Anis,
Well, I think whether this is for the procurement professionals or the end users, procuring services from SMEs, just be patient and be flexible with the SMEs. You need to do it. It takes a while, to onboard them, to get them going, but it's really worth it because what you'll get out of them much more than the large companies. This is one. For the sustainable SMEs specifically, I believe very much into them, more than the large corporation out there because there's a lot of creativity that will come only from those guys. And if there's somebody that understands better what it takes to make a big difference in the world, it's those guys. They know what is best suited for Seychelles. They know what is best suited for all the small countries where the large corporations have no idea and they have no interest to come and do it because it's not big enough. So the companies will be ingrown, smaller local companies, I understand it, and you need to give them basically a chance. Yeah?
super interesting. And we certainly saw that at Expo 2020 and at Expo City as well. And lastly, David.
Thank you. We just launched, I know it doesn't sound like a conclusion, but let me get there. We just launched our net zero transition plan just in January. By the way, everybody says it's a very good document. If you guys have an interest, go download it. 100 pages only, easy to read. But what it really explains very well, sector by sector, how a financial institution like us is trying to decarbonize our portfolio. At the end, the way we can become a net zero bank by 2050, that we have committed to, is by helping all of our clients, current and future clients, to decarbonize their own portfolios, because that's our finance emissions portfolio that is very challenging to decarbonize. What I'm going with this is that one of the pillars of this net zero transition plan is catalyzing the new economy. We are very much aware as a financial institution that most of the technologies that are needed to reach a net zero world by 2050 or 2100, whatever you want to call it, they don't exist yet. We will need to invest in new technologies. So I think all of the financial institutions are realizing that this is an area that we need to do better in. We need to invest more in. There are initiatives, there are funds that are coming. There is a 1 billion fund that we announced in climate tech. So the message would be, I think there is money available, maybe not locally readily available, but there is money, there is funding. I guess it's just trying to maybe think big and try to find it. I know it takes a lot of time. Every time you have conversations with financial institutions that you apply to grants, but banks want to lend money, and we know that we need to cover that portfolio as well. So.
Fantastic. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for your question. Dr. Kiba, Sleiman, Anne, Anis, and David, thank you for your time. And we will leave it for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.